Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ramblings of a Madman. This is your host, Mark Ciccarello, and today I'm a little fired up. I'm recording this episode early. I usually record on either Saturday or Sunday. Today's Friday. Episode 4 just went out yesterday. Episode 4 about why I don't trust the government. So yeah, I'm recording this one a little bit early. Still going to go out on Thursday. The reason I'm a little bit fired up today, and I just decided to record this on a whim, is that my Pizzagate episode 3 of my podcast, was taken off of YouTube. Apparently, I violated their terms and their conditions and their rules for harassment and cyberbullying. That is correct, yes. I was harassing and cyberbullying elite billionaire pedophiles. So they took episode 3 off of YouTube. And so I was a little bit fired up today because of that, and so I came home. I've been home from work for about 2 hours now, and since I got home, I've just been making a whole bunch of shit so I can become self-sustaining on the internet. I just paid some money to get my own site up and running. Bear with me though; it is a very bare bones site at the moment. I'm not very technologically savvy when it comes to things like creating websites, but nonetheless, ramblingmadman.org is live. I'm excited to have this website where I can host my own podcast. I'm still going to be posting the podcast to YouTube and to Spotify, and this episode is most likely going out on Apple Podcasts as well, and maybe Antenna Pod, but it'll also be on my website. And I would appreciate it if everybody who gets a chance to listen to this chooses to listen to it through my website. And if that's too much of a hassle, don't worry about it. Keep listening to it wherever you want to listen to it. But I would just prefer if people were going directly to me instead of to YouTube, because of the shit that they did this week, which was removing my episode from last week for cyberbullying elite billionaire pedophiles. So that's some exciting news. I said last week I was going to have an email set up for this podcast. So if you want to contact me, leave comments about the show, compliment the show if you would be so kind, or constructive criticism. Try not to tear me down too much, or suggestions, or just whatever you might want to hear and listen about in the future. I'd be more than happy to get some feedback from you guys. So the email address that you can reach me whenever is ramblingpodcast2021@gmail.com. Again, that's ramblingpodcast2021@gmail.com. And this is in addition to ramblingmadman.org, which is my website. Oh, also, in addition to the website and to the email, I also made a Patreon account. So if you feel as though you are thoroughly enjoying my content here, and you wish to see me continue to make content and make decent content and put out content regularly like I have been for the last month, consider signing up for my Patreon account and making a donation. The money that gets donated through Patreon is going to go towards me creating more content and putting out better quality content. And I'm excited about Patreon because there's a whole merchandise program that I can do, make custom merch for the people that donate. So that's something I'm looking forward to. By no means is it necessary for anybody to donate money to this podcast, but hey, if you have an extra $5 and you're enjoying the content I'm putting out, and I'm working hard on putting this content out, if you would be so kind. If not, no big deal. I'm gonna keep making this content. It's just the money makes it a little bit easier because especially now that I'm trying to go on my own and not have to use YouTube. So every little bit counts, and it's greatly appreciated if you do. So I said a lot in this 5 or so minutes that I've been rambling on here already. And so a lot of new stuff. Again, the email, if you want to reach me at any time, is ramblingpodcast2021@gmail.com. The website of mine that I put up is ramblingmadman.org. In regards to my Patreon account, the link to that can be found on my website. In the upper right hand corner, there's a button that says support me, and click on that button, and there's a link on that page that will take you to my Patreon account, so you can support me. And any little dollar, any little bit is greatly appreciated. You can also donate to my Patreon through my YouTube account. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I believe the Patreon will be linked in the description of this video, as well as my Twitter. I mean, if you want to check out my Twitter will be linked in this YouTube as well. So yeah, I feel like I'm really starting to take ground here. I'm really starting to get myself as a real podcaster, and it feels good. It almost feels like, you're a talk radio host, but without all the limitations of radio. I can curse, I can say fuck, shit, cunt, whatever. I can talk about whatever topics I want to talk about. I mean, in the case of the Pizzagate, YouTube taking down the Pizzagate episode, that's so be it. But hey, I'm making steps to move forward onto my own platform and become self-sustaining as a podcaster. So I was inspired, this morning to make this episode, and what topic could I choose to do an episode on this week, other than, of course, censorship. Since I'm being censored on YouTube, I'm going to do an episode on censorship. And we're seeing a lot of censorship going on in social media and everywhere today. It's a crazy fucking world we live in. Crazy fucking world that we live in, and it's kind of sad, to be honest. We live in a world of not only where big tech is censoring us, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media giants are censoring the things that we say and we post, but also we're self-censoring. We are, canceling people for having a difference of an opinion. And that in itself is more scary to me than any kind of censorship by an organization or a government, because it shows that we truly are divided, and it's showing that we truly are divided, and we have no or little hope of uniting with each other, because we'd rather cancel each other for having free thoughts and thinking freely than come to solutions. I had gotten into an argument with somebody on Reddit today, because I posted about on the Conspiracy No Politics page about how my Pizzagate episode got taken down from YouTube, and one guy's like, "Well, Pizzagate's the most stupid conspiracy theory I've ever heard of, and James Alefantis, there was nothing wrong with him, and that neckbeard incel who committed an act of violence at Planet Ping Pong or Comet Ping Pong, he's nothing but an incel, and this is a right-wing conspiracy theory," and that's what I mean. You mention Pizzagate anywhere on social media or YouTube or and anywhere, and you're automatically a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Doesn't matter that in my podcast episode I made it very, very clear that I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a right-wing conspiracy theorist. I don't give two shits about identity politics or U.S. domestic politics. And I made it clear that it is all a show, but somehow I'm still a right-wing conspiracy theorist for believing that Pizzagate is real. It's sad that this is how we are in 2021. You can't speak about anything that makes anybody slightly uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable in the slightest, that's not okay, and you're allowed to throw a fucking hissy fit over it, make the bad thoughts and go away, and so you don't have to think about them. It's like we live in a society of like fucking 4-year-olds, and eventually it just gets exhausting to have to censor yourself and like act like you're an adult around little kids, like your parents would censor the words that they would say around you when you were little, but that's how we're acting around adults now, and it makes no fucking sense, and it's weird, and it's fucking wrong, and this isn't how society is supposed to be. I got a little treat for you guys. Here's a little quote, a relevant quote from Dave Chappelle.
It's too hard to entertain a country whose ears are so brittle. Motherfuckers are so sensitive, the whole country is turned into bitch-ass niggas.
Dave was 100% correct in that quote and in that little clip that I just played for you. Why are we so fucking sensitive? Why are we so, afraid to talk and actually have conversations and speak our mind and say what's on our mind and say how we feel? I mean, I don't know. It's like we've been socially engineered to be antisocial. to not want to do anything. And it's weird because that's how like so many people my age are, and it's kind of frustrating, to be 21, to be 20, 21 years old and live in a society where nobody wants to do anything. People are fine with just sitting at home and watching fucking Netflix or playing video games, and after a while that shit gets fucking old. To me anyway, but it seems to be perfectly normal to the rest of society that, well, we don't need to go out, we don't need to have fun, we don't need to socialize, we should just sit indoors and diddle the fucking around and, be antisocial. And I really don't like that this is the time period that I get to live through my 20s, but I'll have to make do, I guess. So before we get into censorship, let's catch up on everything that's happened in the past week. Biden was inaugurated 2 days ago. Big news right there. Apparently, he's going to save the fucking world. He's going to save us from the coronavirus. He's going to save us from racism. He's going to save us from police brutality. He's going to save us from, getting our feelings hurt. LGBTQ rights, they're back on the forefront. And so everything seems to be going good, for the country. We're saved. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Trump is out of office and Biden's in, and now everything's fixed, right? Right? I'm sorry to shit in your cornflakes, piss in your Wheaties, but that's not how it's gonna happen, folks. It's not. If you think that for anything's gonna change just because fucking Biden's in office, you're sadly mistaken. And I'm sorry to rain on your parade. So yeah, Biden's in. The crazy conspiracy theories about Trump, going to be arresting all the pedophiles in D.C. and exposing all the corruption and all that shit. None of that came true. I know some Trump supporters who are still like, oh, well, he's going to do something big still. He's still going to do something big. You just got to hold out. You got to have faith in Trump. Yeah, okay, I'll hold my fucking breath. Biden announced his immediate actions as he's going to take federal measures to end racism, which, worked perfectly the last time a president took federal measures to do so. Lyndon B. Johnson created the welfare state which was designed by Lyndon B. Johnson in order to keep blacks in poverty. That federal action, maybe Biden will be a better LBJ. Only time can tell. Biden also announced that he wants to, administer the vaccine to poor countries because they need our help now more than ever. So yeah, the white people, the white majority country, have to go into the brown countries and give them something that's going to better their lives, which is, the same mindset that we used when we came to America and, slaughtered all the Native Americans and forced them to either die or change their way of living because it was really good for them because they weren't Christians, they were pagans. So we had to, show them Christianity. Or in this case, we had to go to these third world countries where the virus doesn't even really exist and give them vaccines to save them from death. But that's besides the point. He also immediately stopped work on the Keystone XL pipeline, which put thousands and thousands and thousands of people out of work. And that was in addition to raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. A lot of people don't really get the full scope of what that's going to do to our standards of living. Just because I'm going to go out and say that I don't think, that minimum wage should be raised to $15 an hour doesn't mean that I think people should be paid poorly for anything. I think that anybody working any job, working 40 hours a week, should be able to live comfortably no matter what that job is. You shouldn't have to worry about being able to afford your necessary bills and your food and your health care if you're working 40 hours a week. That being said, $15 an hour minimum wage is not the way to go about that. I think we can all support universal health care, right? I think we can all support working 40 hours a week and also being able to afford to live without having to work weekends and shit like that. And if you can support that, then you can support the idea that $15 an hour minimum wage is not going to work. What's going to happen if you raise minimum wage to $15 an hour? Isn't just going to be, oh, well, I went from making $9 an hour at my job at the grocery store to making $15 an hour, and now I'm making a lot more money and I'm able to live better. That's not how it is. Have you noticed that gas prices have already went up? Gas prices have already started going up. So if gas prices go up to $3-4 a gallon, that's fucking ridiculous. Who can afford that? Now, not only do gas prices go up, but the cost of living for everything in general goes up, because now instead of paying, grocery store workers $10 an hour, you're paying them at least $15 an hour. Instead of paying the person who's making your meal at, Chick-fil-A $8-9 an hour, you now have to pay them $15 an hour. And people love to say, well, they don't deserve that money? No, they do deserve to be fairly compensated. But you're not looking at the bigger picture here. That $15 an hour worker, or workers that are now employed by Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or whatever you want to say, wherever you fancy your burger, now that burger is going to be almost twice as expensive, right? Because now you're doubling the cost of production. That's just how shit works. And now let's take it a step further and talk about how all the people who are making $15 an hour now, blue collar jobs, warehouse jobs, entry level warehouse jobs that are paying, $14, $15 an hour. Local companies, smaller businesses with warehouses and shit, or distribution companies or companies that sell products that have warehouses, they can't afford to pay to give their employees a pay raise, because now employees who were a week ago making $5 above minimum wage, and now they're making minimum wage, and so now they're going to want a pay raise, and then so that means any stores that aren't like giant corporations that have warehouses, they're going to go out of business pretty soon, because they're not going to be able to afford to keep up with inflation. So now when all these smaller businesses and locally owned businesses go out of business, where are you going to get your shit from? I mean, it's very rare now to get your stuff from a local business, but once they're gone forever. And you'll have no other option than to buy your stuff from which retailers. I'll name you a few. Walmart. Walmart will always be here. So you'll be able to go to Walmart to get your stuff. You'll be able to go to Amazon, Home Depot, Whole Foods, because Whole Foods is part of Amazon. And that's about it. And, other big box stores. So now we successfully, made it so jobs are harder to get because they're higher paying. The cost of living has went up. Smaller businesses are closing, so now we're relying on big box stores and tech giants, monopolies, giving them more control and more power over the way we live our lives, as if they needed more to begin with. And not only that, but now you had the COVID vaccine passports that the New York Times were talking about how American Airlines is going to establish the fact that you're going to need to show that you had the COVID vaccine in order to be able to book a flight anywhere. But what happens when, there's no more small businesses left, and all the big businesses are saying, well, if you don't show me your COVID vaccine passport, you're not buying from me. You're not allowed to buy your goods here. Here at Amazon, we promote a safe and sound environment, and we want to ensure that everybody stays safe. So in doing so, we are only going to sell products to fully vaccinated people. Fully vaccinated people include people who have gotten the coronavirus vaccine. What happens when they start saying that? It's not like I think, oh, we're going to get the COVID vaccine and, it's just going to kill us instantly, or they're going to take control of our minds, or I don't know what the fuck it's going to do. For all I know, the shit could be nothing, and it could just be a fucking placebo. But that's not the point. It's the point that they're trying to break you and break us and make it so they can do whatever the fuck they want to do to us, so that we have no say in the matter of anything, so that we just become compliant, we conform, and we don't question when the government sends all of our money to fucking foreign countries, and they can only give us $1,800 over 9 months in the middle of a pandemic where that's supposed to be absolutely fucking horrible. Biden's administration has not gotten off to a good start in my book. Not to say that Trump's administration was any better. I mean, it's just, things are looking really dark with Biden's administration, and it's kind of scary. And, I think Trump was only in office to put this into place in the first place. So please don't think that I'm over here bashing Biden and I'm somehow a Trump supporter, because I couldn't be farthest from the truth. But nonetheless, Biden is president now, and he's going to be criticized more than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump isn't in office anymore. So that's just how it's going to go. So I think that's enough ranting and raving about current events. I can only do so much and stomach so much of it in one day. So I guess I'm going to move on to the topic of today, and which is censorship and I'll say censorship and cancel culture. Really, talking about censorship, I'm going to start out by mentioning social media. So I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this podcast that my episode 3 of this podcast, rambling on about cheese pizza, which was about Pizzagate. It was taken down by YouTube as of early this morning, and that doesn't sit well with me. It really doesn't sit well with me, and it leads into something that I kind of mentioned in a previous episode, when I mentioned that Trump had just been removed from every single fucking social media platform that you could think of, and some people are like, well, good, because he's evil and he shouldn't be allowed to be on social media because he's spreading hate and all that. And okay, that's a very valid opinion that you can have. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that their opinions don't matter or are wrong, but the fact remains that they took the President of the United States of America off of every single social media platform. To me, I don't give a fuck about Trump or anything that he has to say, because I can't stand the man. He's an asshole. That's what he is. I don't give a fuck if he's on Twitter or not, because I don't really care to see his tweets. But that being said, it seems like it's more so about sending a message. More so about sending a message that if you don't align with the ideals that are being put forth by, the people who are taking power now, you will be taken off the internet. Whether you are somebody like me, who's just a small podcaster who has a small podcast on YouTube and Spotify, or whether you're Donald fucking Trump, the President of the United States, it doesn't matter. It's a message more so to the little guys to stop thinking like this. A message to people like me who are making these podcasts, and people like you who are listening to these podcasts, and you're getting all kinds of naughty ideas in your head from hearing these bad words that I'm spewing. It's a move against the freedom of thought and the freedom of ideas and the free thinking and free speech. And I sent my dad the screenshot of the YouTube email that I had gotten this morning, and he's like, well, whatever happened to free speech? And it's a good question. Whatever did happen to free speech? But then you have to remember that the Constitution doesn't rule the way we live anymore. Because like I mentioned before, all the big corporations are the people who rule this fucking world. So Google, Amazon, those are the companies, those are the entities that rule this fucking country that we live in. Those are corporations. The corporations don't have to adhere to all the rules of the fucking Constitution. Freedom of speech exists in public, but not when you're using the platform of a corporation. And so that's when it becomes scary, when those big platforms are the only way that you can voice opinions, but you are only allowed to have one opinion. And I hope that makes sense to all my listeners out there. That's what's so fucking scary about 2021 society, is that there is no power for any little guys. It used to be like the internet, you could spread your opinion on the internet 10 years ago, but not anymore. It used to be there were some newspapers out there that actually told the truth, but not anymore. It used to be there were some fucking news stations out there that told the truth, but not anymore. Hell, even Alex Jones of InfoWars fucking infiltrated Bohemian Grove, which I'll do an entire episode on Bohemian Grove eventually as well. But yeah, Alex Jones infiltrated Bohemian Grove at one point before he turned into some Israeli Mossad shill. Believe it or not, Alex Jones was legit at one point. Now they're turning the freaking frogs gay. If you don't know what turning the freaking frogs gay is from, it was a famous, clip of Alex Jones where he was going on about frogs being turned gay. And because that's how much of a joke Alex Jones is now. That's what his content is, just like clickbait shit and Trump shit. And I would think if Trump came to Alex Jones and asked Alex Jones to suck his dick, Alex Jones would gladly do so and accept a big fat load on his chin. It's kind of scary though, when you think about it. This is kind of it, and I don't see it getting any better. And I'm doing this podcast because I like doing this podcast, but I realistically don't expect anything big to happen from it because that would be that's just too unrealistic for this society. This is you can't promote freedom of speech and freedom of ideas in this society. This society isn't built for that. Like I said in that Dave Chappelle clip I played, society is so brittle. There's all these like ideas and speech topics out there and conversation starters out there, but we're afraid to talk about anything out of fear of being canceled, and that's no way to fucking live. And cancel culture is like oddly like just fucking weird because on one hand you have Louis C.K. Louis C.K. was canceled because he invited grown women back to his hotel room and to do whatever you do when a famous comedian invites you to his hotel room after a show. Whatever you do, I can only imagine that you're gonna play Go Fish or something. But anyway, he jerked off in front of a couple of girls, so he got canceled, and he's not allowed to be like popular anymore, and you're not allowed to be a fan of Louis C.K. anymore. Now, meanwhile, Cardi B, on the other hand, she had admitted to, going back to dudes' houses with them and, drugging them and then, robbing them of their possessions and fucking leaving, like some Bill Cosby shit, kind of. But yet she's like, one of the most famous female artists out right now, and it doesn't make sense. There's like some kind of disconnect here, and I don't get it. I wish there was at least some consistency to it, a pattern to figure out here, but there's none whatsoever. It's funny because they tried to cancel Kevin Hart a few years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers that because they found like some decades old tweet that was homophobic. It was a joke that he made about something about not wanting his son to be gay. It was a complete joke, but we're not allowed to make jokes anymore. That's the society that we live in. There is no jokes. What are you crazy? Jokes? We're fucking bitch made. There's no such thing as jokes anymore. Dan Campbell, the new coach of the Detroit Lions, they were trying to cancel him last weekend because it came out that almost 30 fucking years ago, while he was a coach at Texas Tech, he had stated that he was happy to be a coach for a school where the men still like girls and the girls still like men. You're trying to ruin a man's career over him making a slightly offensive joke in the fucking 90s. It's 2021. That was almost 30 years ago. But yet, social media is just fucking wild. And this is what I was talking about. We're self-censoring. And we can talk about, well, those are just jokes. Those are just jokes that people are getting canceled for. You should be sensitive enough to know that those are offensive jokes. Well, what happens when it's not jokes? What happens like when it's shit like, that can save people's lives and save people from being trafficked from being trafficked for sex? Like Pizzagate. Like I just put out an episode on Pizzagate and was taken down for cyberbullying. Who the fuck did I cyberbully? Did I cyberbully Jeffrey Epstein? Did I cyberbully Bill Clinton? Donald Trump? Tom Hanks? Meanwhile, fucking Keemstar has an entire YouTube channel dedicated to fucking harassing people and cyberbullying them. Real people. Not fucking politicians and billionaire elitists. So this is where, cancel culture and censorship culture, becomes a problem. Because, okay, you can say, well, you need to be sensitive and not make jokes about gay people. Okay. But what happens when you fucking get canceled for doing shit that, journalists should be doing? Getting to the bottom and trying to save lives and save the society and save the world. And now nobody wants to fucking do anything, and then out of fear of, losing their jobs and their careers. Like I said last week, so many people or 2 weeks ago, so many fucking people were fired from their positions in media outlets and news organizations because they decided to report on Pizzagate. You have apps like Parler that were just completely shut the fuck down. Taken off app stores and shit because they had a conservative user base. Parler's like a microblogging and a social network, and the majority of their users were conservative, and therefore they took the fucking app off of the app stores. And again, like, people are going to be like, well, they're conservatives and that's bad. That's so fucking ignorant to say. I mean, people just reveal their own ignorance time and time again, and it's not even because I'm a conservative, because I'm not. Conservatives are they're assholes. I know. I deal with conservatives every single day. In person, I have to deal with them, and I'm not allowed to say anything back. I know how big of an assholes they are, but still, they have the right to speak their opinion. It's not about them being conservatives. It's about the powers that be, the powers that are in control, the people, the big tech companies. They can just shut down any opinion that they deem to be unsafe. Like my opinions. Like your opinion. Like this information that I'm speaking to you is probably unsafe, and I'll probably get another strike on YouTube from it. But is this podcast really unsafe to the people who are listening to it? But what happens when it gets taken off of YouTube? What happens then? Does free speech and does censorship matter then? Does cancel culture matter then? Are we going to start realizing how toxic and horrible as a society we have become? I hope so, eventually, but I doubt that we will. I mean, Christ, I remember a few years ago, it was about 4 years ago now, I was banned from the history subreddit, the community on Reddit dedicated to history, for asking the following question. How come in school we are never taught about the role that the Rothschild family played in creating conflicts that led to wars, that led to big wars, like World War I and World War II, and pretty much ever since the Napoleonic Wars? And that was the question I asked. And I got banned. And the reason I got banned was because apparently that question was anti-Semitic. I got censored and banned because me asking why the role of the Rothschilds in the role that they played in wars, in big wars, why is it not taught about in schools? That's anti-Semitic. That question it doesn't. Because the Rothschilds are a Jewish family, I got banned from the subreddit. It's just fucking. It's outrageous. If we're going to be completely honest, it's outrageous. And if you're not familiar with who the Rothschilds, and that's fucking another episode. The main thing you should know is that Lord Rothschild, the current Lord Rothschild, the one that he looks like he's like a fucking 100 billion years old, is the inspiration for the character Mr. Burns in The Simpsons. So that should tell you a lot right there. It's a bit ironic. They keep warning us and beating us over the head with how bad China is, and how bad that their censorship is, and how bad it is with their facial recognition software, and it's so dystopian over there. It's like an Orwellian futuristic dystopian society over there, and yet every day we become more and more close to becoming that, right? We're almost inevitably going to go to war with China, but every day we get closer and closer to being China and to being that kind of society that its citizens cannot trust the government or the big tech companies that are running their lives. Chinese people don't have social media, or as social media like we have social media. That's what they tell us. At least that's what they tell us. I could be completely wrong, because in China it could be a bunch of just normal ass shit over there, but the media just wants to lie to us. But anyway, we're told that China has no social media, or doesn't have social media like we have it here, and because the government doesn't trust them. And is it too outlandish to say that is what's happening here in America? Am I wrong to say that's what's happening here in America? Like, they're taking and purging political opinions from the internet and deeming them dangerous thoughts? What happens when every political opinion is a dangerous thought? What happens when everything other than, go to work, go home, and go to sleep, and go to the breadlines is a dangerous thought? What happens when people get tired of doing that shit, and then they go on Twitter and they tweet it out, and then the next thing you know, you never hear from them again? Because that's what it honestly feels like we're going towards. Watching that inauguration ceremony was so fucking eerie. It looked like something out of a dystopian movie. The Lady Gaga singing the national anthem dressed in all black, and she had that big ass bird on her shoulder, on the garment that she was wearing. And it was just like, it looked like the Hunger Games or some shit. It was weird, and it was fucking weird. The world just feels so broken anymore, so broken and far from repair. It's going to take a lot to get through the upcoming times, and I don't think we know really what we're in for in terms of quality of living, way of life, and all that good stuff. And it's a little shocking. I'd never thought that. I've always been like a quote unquote conspiracy theorist, but you never really expect it to go down in your lifetime, and the shit's actually going down now. Shit is literally going down. Shit is hitting the fan, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. All we can do is to promote free thinking, free speech, freedom of ideas, like we're doing here with this podcast. And that's what you're doing by listening to this podcast, is you're promoting those the movement of the free thinking movement, the free thought movement, the free speech movement, the freedom of ideas. You're promoting that by listening to this. And I want to thank each and every one of these listeners. This show can't go on without me making it. But if I make it and there's nobody listening to it, then there's really no point. Because if that's the case, I really am just a rambling madman sitting alone in my room talking to a fucking computer screen. But at least I know for now I still have you guys, and that's awesome. And like I said earlier, if you do enjoy the show, and I know it's been rocky. I'm not gonna lie. Last episode, I didn't realize that I was shaking my leg throughout the entire recording, and I didn't know that my microphone could be heard shaking until I went and rewatched or listened to it throughout, because I couldn't hear it when I was editing. But for some reason I couldn't hear while I was editing, and it turned out on the final cut. And so that was kind of annoying. But I know it's been rocky, but it seems like you guys are enjoying the content that I put out, and and responding positively to it. So if you really are responding positively to the content, and you would like to make a donation to the Patreon account, feel free to do so. There's it's not necessary in any way whatsoever. It's just a way to help and support the show. Help me, have more freedom to make more content as I move into, you know, becoming independent from, you know, big tech platforms. It's going to become it's going to become harder and harder for me to do so without spending a bit of money. So I decided to make the Patreon account. So if you're enjoying it, you know, send a couple dollars my way. Little man from across the street, let me hold $1. And so yeah, if you're enjoying it, consider donating to the Patreon account. If you have questions or feedback or comments or compliments on the show, the new email for the show is ramblingpodcast2021@gmail.com. The website for the show is ramblingmadman.org. .org. I'm a .org man, not a .com man. I'm a .org man. And you know, finally, you know, if you go to the website ramblingmadman.org, you'll see in the upper right hand corner of the website there is a button that says support me. You click on that button that says support me. It's right next to the podcast button. So to the left, so it's to the right of the podcast button. And if you click on the podcast button, that's where you'll be able to find all my videos hosted on my or that's where you'll be able to find all the episodes of my podcast hosted straight on my website. You don't have to go to YouTube, and you don't have to support YouTube. And right next to the podcast button, you'll see the support me button. You click on the support me button, it opens the page, and if you click the link that's on the page, it takes you right to the Patreon. You can support me. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a new chapter in my career or my journey as a podcaster, and I'm excited, you know, to like be an official podcaster now. I'm making steps to, you know, go independent and fuck the system. And, you know, honestly, YouTube, go fuck yourself. Everybody who works at YouTube, go fuck yourself. Come fight me. Now I'm definitely going to get taken off YouTube. And but yeah, I'm making strives to become better and better with each and every episode. I know the audio quality. I'm trying to get everything figured out. I know the audio quality isn't as good as it could be, and I'll get it all straightened out one day. But thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for, you know, your attention and your willingness to become enlightened and listen to my wisdom. Listen to my words each and every Thursday. I'm very blessed to have you guys and have the family and the friends who are out there sharing and you know, their friends who are out there sharing this and giving me feedback. It's fucking amazing. You guys rock. You know, keep on keeping on. Remember, we're all gods out here, and have a wonderful day.